Far off the northern coast of Iceland, where the Atlantic heaves against black volcanic rock and the sky often weeps in shades of gray, stands the Hornbjarg lighthouse. For centuries, it has been a sentinel, a lonely beacon against the storm, a testament to human resilience in the face of nature's raw, unyielding power. Its stoic silhouette, etched against a tempestuous sky, has witnessed countless storms, guided innumerable ships, and held the silent vigil of its keepers through endless, isolated nights. But in its desolate embrace, Hornbjarg guarded not just the treacherous seas, but a secret so profound, so utterly impossible, it threatened to unravel the very fabric of time itself. This is the story of Elara Jonsdottir, a photographer drawn to the desolate beauty of this edge of the world, and the chilling discovery that would redefine her reality. A collection of faded photographs, meticulously preserved, yet utterly anachronistic. Images taken before her birth. Images, impossibly, of her. How could a lens capture a moment that had yet to exist? What force could conjure such an impossibility? The paradox was a cold hand at the throat of logic, a whisper from a past that had not yet come to pass. And when the final, terrifying chapter closed, only one witness remained. A man who refuses to speak, his silence as heavy and impenetrable as the Icelandic fog, leaving behind only a single, enigmatic object, a silent testament to a mystery that still haunts the wind-battered shores of Hornbjarg. Elara Jonsdottir had always sought the margins, the places where the world thinned out and the elemental forces reigned supreme. A photographer by trade, her lens was drawn to the stark, untamed landscapes of her homeland, finding beauty in the brutal honesty of nature. 2 years ago, she leased the Hornbjarg lighthouse, not as a keeper, but as an artist seeking refuge, a sanctuary where the incessant clamor of modern life could not intrude. The lighthouse, a sturdy stone tower built in the late 19th century, was a living museum. Its spiral staircase, worn smooth by generations of footsteps, ascended towards the lantern room, where a powerful beam still cut through the thickest fog. Below, the keeper's quarters, Spartan but functional, offered panoramic views of the merciless sea. Elara filled the space with her equipment, tripods, various cameras, both digital and antique, and the rich, chemical scent of her makeshift darkroom. She spoke of finding inspiration in the solitude, of capturing the raw, unfiltered essence of the Icelandic wilderness. But perhaps, unconsciously, she was also seeking something else. A connection to the past, a deeper understanding of the land's ancient whispers. Little did she know, the lighthouse held more than just whispers, it held echoes, reverberations from a time that should not have been. It began subtly, as all good nightmares do. One blustery autumn afternoon, while meticulously cataloging the lighthouse's sparse historical archives, a collection of old logbooks, charts, and forgotten personal effects left behind by previous keepers, Elara stumbled upon a wooden box. It was tucked away in a dusty alcove beneath the winding stairs, forgotten for decades. Inside, nestled amongst yellowed parchment and a few rusty tools, was a stack of small, sepia-toned photographs. Her heart quickened with the thrill of discovery. This was her passion, unearthing forgotten visual histories. She spread them out on her cluttered desk, the warm lamplight illuminating their delicate surfaces. There were familiar scenes, the jagged cliffs of Hornbjarg, the churning ocean, even the lighthouse itself, looking much as it did today, yet undeniably older, touched by a different light. Then, a gasp caught in her throat. One photograph depicted a young child, perhaps 5 or 6 years old, playing on the very beach she walked daily. The child's face was blurred, perhaps by movement or the crude optics of the era, but the small, recognizable hand-knitted sweater, the distinct pattern of the pebbles beneath tiny feet, it was profoundly unsettling. And then, another. And another. Scenes from her childhood, places she had played, a particular way she used to hold a shell to her ear. Impossible. She wasn't born until the late 1980s. These photographs, based on the emulsion, the paper stock, the framing, were undeniably from the 1940s or 50s. Her breath hitched. Her own face, impossibly young, impossibly grainy, stared back at her from a photograph taken decades before she drew her first breath. Disbelief warred with a primal, creeping dread. The initial shock gave way to a desperate, consuming need for answers. Ilara, a woman of science and empirical observation, refused to believe in ghosts or temporal anomalies. There had to be a rational explanation. She meticulously dated the photographs, cross-referencing paper types, photographic processes, and even the subtle architectural changes visible in the lighthouse itself with historical records. Her findings were consistent. The images predated her birth by at least 30 years. She pored over maritime logbooks, searching for any mention of strange occurrences, unusual residents, or peculiar photographers. She delved into local folklore, seeking tales of time slips or prophetic visions associated with Hornjarg. She consulted experts, historians, photographic archivists, sending them anonymous scans, fabricating stories about a distant relative's collection. Each expert confirmed the vintage of the prints, their authenticity as mid-20th century photographs, utterly oblivious to the impossible subject matter. The more she investigated, the more the rational explanations evaporated, leaving behind a vacuum filled with gnawing dread. Her days became a blur of research, her nights haunted by the spectral echoes of her own impossibility. Was this a cruel joke, an elaborate hoax orchestrated by some unknown predecessor? Or was it something far more profound, something that defied the very laws of causality? The lighthouse, once a sanctuary, now felt like a cage, its ancient stones whispering secrets she was not meant to hear. As Ilara's investigation deepened, the mystery began to shift, moving beyond the intellectual and into the terrifyingly tangible. The photographs, once mere objects, seemed to possess a strange, unnerving energy. She would find them rearranged on her desk, sometimes even appearing in places she hadn't left them. The subtle creaks and groans of the old lighthouse, once comforting sounds of an ancient structure settling, now took on a sinister edge. A fleeting shadow, too quick to identify, would dart across the periphery of her vision in the long, winding corridor. The oil lamp in her study, a comforting source of warm light, would flicker erratically, casting dancing shadows that seemed to writhe and contort on the walls, transforming familiar objects into monstrous shapes. She began to hear whispers, just at the edge of audibility, carried on the wind that howled outside her windows, fragmented, indistinct voices that seemed to call her name. Sleep became a luxury she could no longer afford, haunted by vivid, disturbing dreams where she was both the photographer and the photographed, observing herself from an impossible distance, a ghost in her own past. The isolation, once a source of peace, became a torment, amplifying every sound, every shadow, every terrifying possibility. The photographs were no longer just images, they were a window, yes, but a window through which something was also watching her, pulling her inexorably into a temporal labyrinth. Was the lighthouse itself a nexus, a thin place where the veil between what was and what will be had worn dangerously thin? Ilara's final days were pieced together from the frantic, increasingly illegible entries in her personal journal, discovered scattered amongst overturned furniture and abandoned equipment. The meticulous script had devolved into a desperate scrawl, filled with cryptic sketches and half-formed theories. Her last entries spoke of the photographs becoming animated. Moving, changing, the figures within them sometimes shifting position, their eyes seemingly following her. She wrote of a growing certainty that the images were not merely from the past, but were actively drawing her into it, or perhaps, a version of it that had already occurred. The weather, mirroring her deteriorating state, had turned apocalyptic. A furious storm raged outside, the wind a banshee's shriek, the waves hammering the cliffs like an angry fist. Her last coherent words spoke of a presence, not malevolent, but insistent, beckoning her. She described a sensation of being watched, not by one entity, but by countless eyes from a time she could not comprehend. The final page was stained and torn, a single, horrifying sentence barely decipherable: "They aren't just pictures. They are doors. And I'm walking through." When the Coast Guard finally managed to reach Hornjarg after the storm, the lighthouse was empty. Ilara Jonsdottir was gone. Her cameras lay abandoned, lenses pointing aimlessly at the chaos. And on the floor, next to a developing tray, lay a single, freshly developed photograph. It was a picture of the Hornjarg lighthouse, during a storm, its beam piercing the darkness. But in the foreground, silhouetted against the tumultuous sky, was a lone figure. Ilara. Her back to the camera. Walking into the raging sea. In the aftermath, the Hornjarg lighthouse stands empty once more, its light still sweeping the desolate coastline, a silent testament to a story too strange to be believed. Ilara Jonsdottir's disappearance remains officially unsolved, attributed to the unforgiving nature of the Icelandic sea. The photographs she discovered, and the final, haunting image she left behind, were collected by the authorities. They sit now, deep in an evidence locker, dismissed as the tragic delusions of an artist driven mad by solitude. But one man knows the truth, or at least, a terrifying fragment of it. Coast Guard officer Bjorn Helgeson, the first to enter the lighthouse after Ilara vanished, was interviewed extensively. His face, etched with a profound weariness, betrayed a deeper trauma. He refused to speak of what he saw, what he felt within those ancient walls. His eyes, when they met the camera's lens, held a haunted, resigned look, as if he had glimpsed something no human was meant to witness. He offered no explanations, no theories, only an impenetrable silence. Yet, before his voluntary psychiatric evaluation, he left behind a single item with the investigating officers. It was a small, roughly spherical object, the size of a plum, made of a dark, obsidian-like stone, veined with what appeared to be faint, internal light. It hums faintly with a resonance that can only be felt, not heard. It is ancient, smooth from countless years of handling, and impossibly cold to the touch, even in the warmest room. No one knows its origin, or its purpose. Was it a relic of the lighthouse's forgotten past? A key to the temporal paradox? Or a final, desperate message from Ilara, a piece of the impossible she brought back from beyond the veil? The Hornjarg lighthouse remains, shrouded in a swirling mist, its secrets held tight by the unyielding land and the unforgiving sea. But somewhere, perhaps, the whispers continue, echoes from a time that has yet to arrive, waiting for another soul brave enough to listen. What if the future has already happened, and we are merely catching up?